All, Skipper Roberto here. Today is Sunday, April the 19th, 2020, and I have been on an electrical mission today. I started off yesterday, Saturday morning, and began slowly mapping the electronics on the Tamara. It all started off because my rear steaming light doesn't work. There's no power going to it. I tried replacing the bulb. There's not appear to be any power going to it. That was number one. The second thing was my anchor light also has no power to it. Okay, there's no power going to this light at all, and I don't know where the power is coming from at this point. And the third issue was the masthead light at the very top. That also has no power going through it. So these three lights have been a pain to me since I got the boat, and so I started on a mission, started yesterday, to track down what's going on. These instruments do have power to them. My depth meter does have power to it, and my autopilot does have power to it. The interesting thing is that when I turn on the instrument switch down in the cabin below, both of these items turn on at once. So that tells me they're both being powered by the same switch. Okay, so that's good, they have power. The next thing is the radio. I wanted to understand where the radio is getting its power from because it doesn't rely on any of these nav switches for its power. As soon as I turn on the radio, it turns on. So that tells me that it's being wired directly from the positive terminal, probably via a switch or a fuse rather, and it's self-powered and not have anything to do with this panel there. So I wanted to confirm that. So, in order to do that, the first thing, and also I wanted to find out what's powering my cabin lights. I do have power to all 6 cabin lights. I have one here above the stove, another one here above the nav station, another above the SETI, and I have 3 more at the bow, 2 in my cabin and one above the porta toilet. So when I hit the switch cabin lights, all these get powered. They all have their own independent switches. There's nothing wrong with the cabin lights at all. So, in order to find out what's going on with that top light and the anchor light and whatever this extra equipment light is, it's necessary to understand what's going on behind this power panel. Now, obviously, when I turn on my cabin lights, they're all working. When I click my instrument lights, both my navigation, both my autopilot and my depth finder turn on, so those turn on. When I turn on my navigation lights, those turn on. The navigation lights are the forward, the red and green navigation lights that you need at night. So those all work. So, in order to find out what's going on, I figured to myself, well, that's not too bad. There's 6 switches and 6 fuses. So it's either got to be a fuse or a switch. Let's get behind there and see what we need to do. So I looked at this and I went, holy moly, that's a lot more than 6 switches and 6 fuses. So I started putting my networking skills together and started looking at this equivalent of looking behind a network switch situation where I need to trace these wires. And the first thing that I needed to do was to find out what powers this entire panel, right? This is all a DC panel. It must all be getting its entire power source from one line somewhere. I was able to determine that there was this blue cable here. It has marked with a positive, and this blue cable comes in and attaches right up to here on this fuse side, and this energizes the entire 6 fuse bank, all 6 of these items, starting with the lights all the way across, are powered from this one cable. and this one cable is directly wired into the battery positive terminal over on the battery side. I was able to trace that. So that was a good starting point. Um, so let's go move along. I started at the battery here. Also labeled everything at the battery so I knew where stuff was coming from. Here's the blue wire that I was talking about, and that powers the instrument panel and the fuses, and that was able to trace all the way back to the back of this one here. Okay, so that was good. Now I know where this is getting its power from. Then the thing was to determine how the power is getting distributed to everything, man. Because look at this jumble. It's not too bad, but I don't know where all this stuff is, except for what the label told me on the front. So the label on the front told me that this was cabin lights here, cabin lights. So that told me that this is the front. Must be the cabin light switch. And there's a fuse right here that feeds the switch. And the switch, in turn, feeds two lines. So the next thing I decided, okay, well, let me do a PDF and map this stuff out so that I'll know what's going on later. And so I started working with my test light, mapping each connection. This was a handy little tip that I got from Chris Lundeen and from a great sailing maintenance book, Tom Casey's book, Maintenance Sailing. It's a great little tool here. The negative clip you clip onto your negative post on your battery, and the positive has a little bulb in there, and it lights up when it tells you have a complete connection. So I was able, over a period of hours, to map all those out. So I was able to determine that my cabin lights were powering two items. When I throw cabin lights, it's sending power to this red line here, which is feeding this bank here. And this bank in turn is feeding the 6 cabin lights throughout the boat. Now these are the power feeds. I suspect that these are the negative feeds coming back. I'll need to determine that later. But the power end is going out to the 6 cabin lights powered by this cabin light switch. Now it's also sending power to another line here, and this line feeds the light at the navigation desk. There's a little lamp at the navigation lamp. So that's also feeding the navigation lamp. So I guess they figure that's part of the cabin lighting system. And then this white return must also be a negative return coming back from that little desk lamp. I'll have to determine that later. All right. So I have cabin lights. The instrument line is also hot. When I throw that, I have both my depth finder and my autopilot. Those are both being powered by these two lines here. Okay. The third one, when I throw the navigation light, that is powering the red and green lights in the front of the boat that you need at nighttime. So that's fine. Now the quandary is these three. This one is marked top light, this one is marked anchor light, and this one is marked other utilities. They have power to them. When I tested them, they do have power at this point. So there's definitely power on the side of those switches. But where they're going to, they're not receiving power. So I still need to trace what's going on with this top light. I suspect that's the light at the top of the mast somewhere. Okay. Now that top light is also sending power somewhere else, right? It's sending power down this line. I'll have to trace that one. And it's sending power as well to this red line, which is coming over here and coming up to here, and looks like it's coming over and doing nothing up here. But we'll see what happens with that one. And then this auxiliary has nothing hooked up to it at all, so there's nothing there at all. So it's this top light or mast light and top light that I need to find out what's going on with. But I figured to myself, well, man, this is a PDF. This is not going to help me if I'm on the boat and I need to, or help somebody else while you're on the boat. So I decided to actually go a step further and put labels on everything. So I know exactly where stuff is coming from. I can tell what's coming, that this is the desk lamp, this is the depth meter, this is the power coming from the battery terminal, powering the whole thing. I have my cabin lights over here. So I'm slowly labeling this and made it look a little neater, rolled this up, just make it look a lot neater. Um, so again, the three things I still need to figure out is what's happening with this top light, anchor light, and auxiliary here. Not so much the auxiliary, but these two. And there's nothing in here that says stern light. So I'll need to figure out what's happening with those. So that's where I'm at, and the next weekend I get, I'll continue and figure out definitely what's happening with those lights outside. Now, I suspect that if there are six power lines going out, there must be six negatives coming in, right, to the negative terminal. Now, this I've determined is negative, and if I take a good look, let's see, like these ones, this power grid all joins together. You see, this is all soldered together. So I know that this is all one complete power grid. Anything else I add to this will be powered by that cabin light switch. This is a separate bank here. See, it's soldered and it stops right here. So whatever powers this powers everything in here. But that's not powering anything on this particular line that's coming down and into what they're calling top light. See, but there's another one coming out here from that top light that I'll need to trace, and nothing coming out of that auxiliary. Okay. But anyway, what I was going to say was I suspect that these green ones over here, I need to test this thoroughly because these are all connected and soldered together. If they are negative, they would be supplying negative, well, wait a minute, yeah, negative polarity. So I just suspect 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of these are coming from the cabin lights, and I'll have to check out what the, I'll have to actually figure that out for sure, but that's what I suspect. At any rate, that's where I'm at this journey in mapping out the electronics on the TAMARA. I hope to be completed next week and have all this taken care of before long, and have it all buttoned up so that everything works.